The story begins with the narration explaining how God created humanity and witches. God bestowed powers to the witches with the purpose of helping and guiding humans who didn't possess magical abilities. The witches gladly agreed and promised to help humans in the name of friendship. However, in the present day things have taken a drastic turn. Humans have turned against witches and want them banished as the witches prepare to be publicly executed. One of the witches curses the humans for their betrayal and she hopes humanity perishes before she's hanged. Meanwhile, in the Redia Empire in the Salsavian region, in the middle of the desert, a young boy named Adonis complains about being tired after traveling for a long time. He's an apprentice to an ice witch named Chloe, who is rigorously studying a map to determine the next route they should take. Adonis takes a jibe at her and asks why she can't use magic to determine the location. Chloe dismisses him, reminding him her magic is not free. As she goes back to reading the map, Adonis takes out his smartphone which tells them their precise location. Much to Chloe's chagrin, she insists he refrain from using it or they'll be found, but Adonis explains that he made the smartphone himself so it can't be used to track them. Because it uses free summoning magic, it is quite cost-effective. Its latest technology can easily keep them safe from the army's radar. Adonis could have stopped here, but he decides to push Chloe's buttons by calling her methods lame, which doesn't go in his favor and he ends up with a double bump on his head as a result of the smack. Suddenly Adonis' face turns somber and he asks Chloe why they have to be on a run. Chloe understands his frustration and explains that she is a witch, and after the change in the people's attitude towards witches, living has become a struggle. She tries to cheer Adonis and they soon resume their journey. It is imperative for them to find a place that is tolerant towards witches so they can reclaim living in peace, which once was the norm. Seeing Adonis adamant about studying under her, she pulls his leg and asks if he is into older women, making Adonis embarrassed and mad at her. Chloe giggles and Adonis wonders how she can be happy in a horrific place like Redia, where the witches are subjected to atrocities. Adonis is hatred towards the region as such that he believes they should eradicate humans with magic. Just then something glistening at a distance catches their attention. A number of army men and high-speed vehicles approach them. It soon becomes clear they are there to eliminate Chloe, whom they regard as a fugitive, which Adonis takes a defensive stance, but Chloe stops him as he is inexperienced with using magic and steps forward. She activates her ice magic fully, which procures her a staff which she uses to subdue the army men. Adonis, however, is not at all happy, and after Chloe's done, he angrily asks why she wouldn't let him use magic. Chloe explains he is inexperienced, but Adonis produces a humongous sword to show that he is competent. Chloe lets it slide, but Adonis confronts her and asks if he's being a human is the reason she stops him from using magic, since she doesn't want Adonis to eliminate his kind. Adonis is brought to tears as he shares how frustrated he is because he is unable to protect Chloe. Moved by his words, Chloe embraces Adonis. Meanwhile, the news about the failure to eliminate the fugitive which reaches the 23rd Emperor of the Redia Empire, Gerda. He gets urged and orders the army to bring him Chloe. Unbeknownst to the duo, one of the machines that Chloe froze activates and after confirming their location creates a portal to teleport them to the capital palace. Chloe and Adonis start floating and before they're transported they clasp each other's hands. At the capital palace, Gerda addresses the citizens of the region and provokes his audience against the witches. Chloe is shocked that the witches were able to complete the physical transfer over such a long distance and within such a short period. Adonis comforts Chloe and reassures her, and we get to know her name is Chloe. We see a space station hovering in space confirming the extra-dimensional transfer of QS to the capital Central Plaza. The Central Capital Plaza comes into view with the Emperor addressing his subjects modestly. He continued by telling them how witches and magicians have protected them from everything, every natural disaster or physical occurrence that could bring them harm, and his gratitude for their service. His tone then becomes serious and he expresses how unjust it is that he and his subjects have to worship these witches, all because they possess magic which is alien to human knowledge. Then he reveals his grand fleet of airships and hot air balloons which protected the airways of the entire metropolis from any form of attack. They have huge automatic trains which traverse the entirety of the metropolis and a tool of absolute power and wisdom, the smartphone. He is genuinely pleased with the revolution they have undergone by viewing technology into their everyday life, what he called the gear technology, and the fact that they do not need to rely on witches for their safety, protection, and development anymore. The Emperor then declares war on every witch and sorcerer to prove that they are the supreme leaders of the world and not the witches. The Emperor stepped off the podium as his partner was commending him for his well-spoken speech. The green flash appeared from the skies and struck the ground just below the podium where the Emperor was giving his speech. It was a wide circular area and we saw Adonis and Chloe hunched over right where the green flashed just a few moments before. The Emperor calls Chloe by name, apparently expecting her to make an arrival. While the Emperor looks thrilled, Chloe and Adonis don't look too pleased to be in his presence. Adonis beckons on Chloe to run while he buys her some time. He brings out a quill, but he's quickly overwhelmed by the Emperor's officers. He struggles to get out of their grip, but to no avail. At this point we find out Agnes is her apprentice and he is actually human while Chloe is a witch. Chloe rises to her feet and addresses the Emperor as the king of humans, threatening him to let go of her apprentice if she values the lives of his human audience. At this point we see some mana essence gathering up around here and a huge blue energy ball appears at the top of her staff just behind her. Chloe confesses that she has let the humans live so far just out of pity, but now she was about to destroy all that they love and care about. As she charges up her attack and launched it, suddenly the blue energy ball broke up and decomposed. Shocked and wide-eyed, Chloe looks on in disbelief. The Emperor addresses her, telling her how foolish she was to underestimate the power of technology they have acquired, and a magic photon nullifier comes into view. The audience are really pleased with the nullification of Chloe's magic, laughing and jeering at her. Adonis also tries out his magic as he is held down, but it was also nullified, so nothing happens. The Emperor walks up to Chloe, grabs her garment and rips it to pieces. He then lands a resounding slap which sends her tumbling to the ground, telling her witch who can't use magic as a mere woman. Then the audience took this opportunity to take some pictures of the infamous witch while making rude remarks at her. Adonis manages to break free from the grip of the Emperor's guards, but he is brought down by the guards again before he can reach her. The Emperor orders his guards to kill Adonis, and at this point Chloe bows her head to him. She pleads for her apprentice to be left out of her humiliation, claiming he is innocent since he is human. She claims she took him as a slave against his own will. She kept begging for his life to be spared while profusely shedding tears. Adonis tried his magic again, vowing to kill all humans present, but the Emperor, not paying him any mind, raised a gun to Chloe's head. She pushed her head to the muzzle, accepting her fate, Adonis now shedding tears as well, wondering why fate dealt them such a bad hand. Chloe addresses him and tells him thank you for everything. There's a flashback to when she picked him up as a small starving child on the streets. Chloe approached him, she offered to help him get up and he accepted. Suddenly he snaps out of his recollection at the sound of the lady being shot in her head by a man wearing a white suit. The Emperor turns back to leave and his soldiers go all out, shooting Chloe with their guns. Adonis, too much shocked to speak, gathered as a crowd watching and filming this. In a rage, he yells at them to stop. He begins to remember all the times they were together and how truly happy he was. He watches her fall onto the ground as cries his eyes out. The crowd cheers out to the man and white as he stands in front of them feeling glorious. His guard walks toward Chloe and chops off her head using an axe. The Emperor picks up her head and raises it to the crowd as they cheer while Adonis cries profusely. 10 years later, in a prison camp in the Redia Empire, children are chained up. Two girls fight over food and the girl named Daroka tries talking them out by offering them a loaf of bread. But one of the girls just snatches it from her, asking her to stay away from their dispute. Just then a girl named Anna walks up to her to find out if she's okay and why she gave her food. Daroka just avoids the question, playfully telling her that she okay. They sit together and Anna tells Daroka about how generous she is. She begins to cry, saddened by the fact that they were told if all witches were dead in the world would be a better place, but they still fight themselves even after all the technology was invented. Daroka cheers her up with some puppet show, telling her they'll be fine no matter what, and they both eagle sadly. Just then some guards come and yelling a prisoner's number and asking him to get up, but no one responds. In fear, the girls whispered this was the 4th time someone had been called and taken and wasn't returned back to the holding units. They both stared at the guard in fright, wondering who had been called upon. Just then Daroka looks at their tag to find out that it was Anna being called. She quickly exchanges their tag, takes Anna's number and responds to the guard. He asks her to follow him. Meanwhile, Anna stares at them as they both walk away with tears gushing from her eyes, and shocked Daroka is sacrificing herself for her. She fears the outcome, knowing fully well that Daroka will not be returning. Daroka is standing between two guards being interrogated by Chief Warden Palpol. He asked her to take off her clothes to confirm there was no infliction on her. He was about to give her to the Lord as a service girl. She shocked at his request, but looks around to see the bodies of other girls and sadly accepts her fate. The warden goes on ramping up how his place is run by the taxes of people, so he has to serve them well. He grabs Daroka, forcefully taking a photo of her with him while he's on his phone about sending the photo to HR. She bites his finger and grabs the phone from him. Palpol screams out loud, telling the guard to go after Daroka as she runs away from the room. While running, Daroka tries to unlock every cell, releasing everyone, but realizes that it requires voice recognition to carry out the task. She tries multiple times in frustration but is still unable to unlock the cells. She then begins to imitate the chief warden and to her surprise successfully unlocks the cells. She screams at the girls to run as the gates open. There's a commotion as the cells open and the prisoners begin running. The guards are unable to control the situation, so they call for backup. Daroka runs towards giant golden doors and taps the phone to unlock it. The door opens, revealing a room with a steel containment. As she stares at the containment, some guards catch her, hitting her to the ground. They are trying to control the situation by preventing the doors of the containment from opening, but it is too late as the door opens. We then see a man covered in bandages releasing himself from several chains. He is Adonis, who's been confined for the past 10 years and now wants revenge. Things continue. The guards tremble in fear and Adonis, with unparalleled anger, breaks free from his shackles with fear. In his voice, one of the guards points out that prisoner 1001 is free and he wants to report it to the chief. There is no time though, so they make the incredibly wrong decision to try and put him back in the chamber. These hopeless fools think it will help if they all going at once, but Adonis instantly eliminates one of them. Without a single word or wasted movement, Adonis expertly finishes off the other two, Daroka probably wishing she still had her puppets. It's terrified out of her mind and Adonis begins to approach her. She begs Adonis not to do anything, but her measurable anger courses through him and it's as if words can't reach him. He fires a shot at her, but we see that he's somehow able to still be merciful, as he only shattered chains. An announcement is made to all the guards in the prison warning that all cell doors and corridor partitions have been opened. Elsewhere, Director Yamato, whose your lives could probably be seen from space, tells the blonde guy to handle the situation at the prison and gives them permission to arm himself with weapons greater than Class 5. This guy speaks far too casually for Vice Director Yuki's liking and is sent on his way. Yuki promises to kill that blonde boy eventually, but your model warns against it as he is a high-ranking executive just like her. Director Pancake, for your lobes, is confident in the guy's abilities but knows that the prison is quite dangerous. At the prison, the chaos continues and it is reported to the warden that even the confiscated item storage has been opened. He can't believe that the Daroka managed to crack his phone's voice authentication system and is deeply frustrated by her choice to free the one person they couldn't afford to let escape. Elsewhere, we see Adonis atop a building. He tests his powers by firing a bullet and uses one of his written-style summoning spells called Gain. Adonis, clearly with only one goal in mind, it claims that it's now time to end every last citizen. Back at the prison, blonde boy, whose real name is Ikao, reports that he has searched the entire internment camp but found no signs of the boy. We see that taking care of the situation actually meant eliminating all the prisoners, and he learns that a building was struck by a massive shell. He will head there as soon as possible but decides that he needs to clean up the cause of the mess first. Back in the city, Daroka is completely distraught. She blames herself for the catastrophe that's to come since she couldn't stop Adonis. Nearby, Adonis roams the city and we see that his destructive behavior has made the news. It reports that a massive artillery show-like object was fired into a building. The extent of the damage is unclear, but it could be an attack by neighboring nations. Adonis continues to roam as he thinks about how Chloe would not praise him for what he's about to do. He imagines what she would say, emphasizing that getting revenge won't bring her back to life. He managed to escape, so she would want him to just go enjoy his life, but Adonis is able to find just a tiny bit of comfort from these words. But some belligerent jerks, who probably deserve what's coming to them, call him a creep when they see him talking to himself. Adonis acknowledges that 10 years have passed since Chol's death, but no matter how much time passes, he will never forget what happened. The look in her eyes, her voice, the words when she told him she loved him. He states that he loved her too. Just as he starts using his written-style summoning magic, there is shakes beneath the city, and this time Adonis has summoned the giant. Nearby, the police don't believe callers that are calling about a giant, but they quickly realize that something is wrong when a car comes crashing into their building. The driver is terrified of something huge, but the cops, doing what they do best, don't believe him either. And this brilliant detective that probably deserves a raise determined that the driver's just drugged out of his mind and they should just arrest him. Sherlock calls the narcotics division but quickly realizes his mistake when he actually sees the giant. The giant is doing immense damage to the city, leaving people in peril. Adonis that makes his way to the center of the city as he exclaims the Emperor Gerda better not try to run. By the Emperor, Yamato's informed that the giant robot, it's passing through the business district and heading their way. They're unable to stop it and all attempts to reach the Emperor have failed, but the Queen has informed them that he is not well. Director Yamato declares a state of emergency. He requests air-ground support from all available aircrafts in order that all armored foot soldiers be sent as well. Yamato marvels at the giant robot and is informed that the boy and his quill have gone missing from the prison, making it clear that the giant must be powered by magic. This makes things much simpler for the pair of earlobes with the body attached to them, as this means they only need to activate their magic photon suppression device. With the extermination of all which the device was put in underground storage, and it's uncertain if the 10-year-old device will work properly. Yamato leaves the issue of national importance in the hands of Yuki, and with that, the national state of emergency is declared. The giant continues its rampage, and we see that Adonis's rage spares no lives. Some tanks arrive hoping to end the catastrophe, but their attacks miss badly. For some unknown reason their shells won't fly straight. Adonis calls them scum as he makes a demand for their lives and has a giant punch a building with such sheer force that he destroys the tanks. Yuki can clearly tell from the massive destruction that Adonis' 10 years in confinement were spent meaningfully. It turned out to be a simulation in its mind without limits, scientific research conducted within the mind, the ultimate environment to determine the most precise way to slaughter a nation. As Adonis continues his rampage, Yuki explains that the only way for a non-witch to use magic is through written-style summoning magic. It is the practice of understanding and systematizing the mechanisms of magic and converting them into mathematical expressions using a special quill. However, mastering it wouldn't have been easy without such an excellent teacher. Right now for Adonis there's no difference between those who were present 10 years ago and those who weren't. Adonis is relentless in his attack. He states that if killing Chloe was humanity's great purpose, then everyone who lives in the country and reaps the benefits is just as guilty. Adonis then demonstrates his incredible power to summon anything at will and summons some giant Gatling guns called the Bullet Belt. Our revenge-seeking protagonist is determined to make things right as he wants to exchange an eye for an eye. He does just as the humans did to his teacher and sprays bullets down on a large crowd. The young man that we saw 10 years ago has clearly been driven to the absolute edge with tear-filled eyes and without any semblance of sanity left. He looks to the sky, finding a bone-chilling beauty and the aftermath of his rampage. However, something isn't quite right. Clearly disappointed and still distraught, Adonis wishes he could feel better about things. Nearby we said that Ikaut is watching, and he is told that the spellcaster is in the palm of the giant's hand. All forces are told that their target is long-term prisoner the witch's apprentice Adonis. The assault on the giant starts with a group of fighter jets. They bombard the giant with several missiles, forcing Adonis off of it. With reckless abandon, missiles continue to rain down, putting civilians at great risk. A building is about to turn a very recently orphaned child into a pancake, but Doroka appears out of nowhere to save him. She leaves the kid with a stranger and explains that she is on her way to stop Adonis. On top of a nearby building, Adonis determines that he's out of shape and soldiers begins to descend on him. Back at the Imperial Castle, we see that Emperor Gerda managed to maintain his impeccable mustache. He was not able to maintain his health. He is severely ill, so the queen tells him not to worry about anything and their empire will be just fine. She tells him to rest and assures that he did a great job as emperor in making sure the empire would be strong. The Emperor of Simpering credits the queen for staying by his side and giving him the strength to do what he does. However, he coughs with enough intensity that it could probably dislodge all his internal organs, and we learn that he has an incurable disease. This absolute alpha male with a mountain of testosterone tells him that he needs no doctor since he is totally fine. Even though he's casually holding a palm full of his own blood, Gerda begins to wonder if his illness is a curse from God himself. It doesn't matter though, he refuses to repent. They built a hyper-scientific civilization and burned their neighbors, the witches, for the sake of progress. The world and humanity could never advance as long as witches were around. As he gives his little self-assuring speech, we see that Adonis doesn't need any words and continues reducing the population. Gerda continues to explain that humanity must carve its own path alone. The new age has no need for magic, and if anything, magic would only get in its way. There is one thing he is certain of, and that is that he did the right thing. It begins to rain, and Gerda shows that his mustache isn't only smoothing about him, as he tells his queen that she is a flower that blossomed on the path of carnage. Elsewhere, Yamato shocked to hear with his ears that their elite unit has been wiped out. However, what's even more startling is that a civilian is now approaching the target. We then watch as Adonis chokes out a soldier, and the soldier, seemingly with a death wish, tells Adonis that they should have ended his life 10 years ago along with that witch. Adonis, so some of the coldest eyes will ever see, agrees that they should have ended him, and even he wishes they had. Before Adonis can take out more of his frustrations, Doroka arrives to stop him. She begs that he stop his rampage as he has already taken the lives of many citizens of this empire. She wonders if he hasn't done enough yet and explains that she doesn't want to see any more innocent people die. The word innocent absolutely sets him off, and he shockingly ends the soldier's life right in front of her. Daroka has made a huge mistake, as they're trying to tell him that these people are innocent has made him realize something. He was confused but has now determined that whether they're radiant or not, all humans are his enemy's subjects for extermination, even if they're prisoners. Daroka shows no fear though and tells them that Chloe wouldn't want this. She foolishly pushes her luck, but continuing to remind him about Chloe. But this just makes Adonis even more furious, and he reminds the human scum to not casually speak Cole's name. He assumes that Daroka just started to distract him until the next wave of soldiers arrives. It's exactly the type of things humans would do, since they always fight dirty just like they did back then. He is certain that there's no way the witches would have lost to humans if they hadn't used cheap tricks. He tells Daroka to stay out of it since she knows nothing. However, Daroka knows far more than he thought. She states that his name is Adonis. It was the name the world's greatest witch gave to her beloved student. She then shocks him to his core as she states that this is common knowledge for witches like herself. Adonis is in absolute disbelief. For just a moment she begins to introduce herself, but Adonis becomes enraged again. He is certain that she's just messing with his head, and he points out that all witches are dead. He tells the human scum to never speak of witches again, but she explains that they managed to survive the witch hunts. With the whirlwind of emotions, Adonis asks with frustration that if they survived, why they didn't come to save Chloe. Why did they let their fellow witch die? She apologizes over and over again and explains that they were all desperate to escape. Adonis doesn't want to hear any apologies, though it reminds her that it's too late, Chloe's already gone. Daroka then leaves him in disbelief as she states that Chloe will come back. They will bring her back to life. Adonis only takes this as an insult though, and prepares to end her life for her absurd lies. She pleads to him and explains that she infiltrated the country to save him in order to bring back Chloe. They need his memories of her. They need him to resurrect Chloe. Adonis doesn't even seem to be listening to her anymore as he summons a sword. He continues asserting that he will end everyone. He will end her and anyone that gets in his way. He will end anyone who defies him and everyone who speaks of Chloe. Daroka decides that if that's what Adonis needs, then she will gladly give her life to satisfy him. She says that she's just glad to have met him, and Adonis reminded of when Chloe said those exact words. Adonis collapses to the ground, breaking down in tears. His relentless pursuit of revenge pauses for a moment, overshadowed by the faintest glimmer of hope to bring back Chloe. Adonis isn't sure what to believe anymore, but is certain that he desperately wants Chloe back and asks Daroka if it's really possible. She assures him that it is. Daroka instructs him to come with her and promises that he isn't alone anymore. Adonis, changing his focus from vengeance to a desperate grasp at hope, reaches out to her, only to be utterly stunned when Daroka gets shot. It's echoed out and he's just disappointed he couldn't hit both of them. Things continue. We then get a look into the recent past as the city is being invaded. Daroka is there and she could only watch helplessly as her home is being destroyed. Her neighbors are being ended right before her eyes, but surprised to see that Mia is still alive. Mia has no clue what happened and explains that the humans just attacked suddenly. Daroka can't make sense out of it as she points out that they were getting along solo with the humans until recently. Daroka wants to go full Hogwarts and magic everything back to normal, but Mia says that they can't and points out that the humans have brought a machine that suppresses their magic. Mia tells Daroka to run and tell someone named Ophelia what is happening, as she might be able to help. Daroka wants Mia to come with her, but doesn't seem to realize that Mia has a giant hole in her back that looks like the Grand Canyon, and she probably won't be able to stand up, let alone go on a trip. Mia tells her how to get to Ophelia's house, and we finally get to see the origin story of the great night puppet she had in prison. Mia won't let the gaping hole in her back stop her from making one last performance, and she uses a puppet to tell Daroka that she is a strong girl. This absolute show woman hides the pain from her back cave, deepens her voice, and tells Daroka to run as quickly as she can. No one will be able to catch her, and she will be there before she knows it. Daroka takes the puppet and begins running as Mia says her final goodbye. She knows not to look back as she runs as fast as she can, and soldiers find Mia to finish off what they started. Back to the present, Adonis by Daroka's side after she had just been shot. He begs her not to die just yet and desperately asks her how he can bring Chloe back from the dead. She tells him something about the witches we can hear, but he has to move away quickly as bullets rain down on her. Surrounded by soldiers, Adonis' rage can never seem to end as he feels like he's being messed with. He was just given hope that Chloe could be brought back, but has no clue how to do it. The soldiers prepared and Adonis's life, and the foolish Ecout who stupidly shot the girl that was going to help Adonis, tells Yamato prematurely that Adonis is dead. However, we see that Adonis has picked up his quill and he tells the humans not to get cocky. The soldiers then just watch as Adonis prepares his attack, and only after a few seconds do they decide to shoot. These guys fire every bullet they have, but it's no use as they just bounce right off of Adonis's magic barrier. Yamato can hear the fight from a mile away and doesn't like what's happening. Once Adonis is done demonstrating his power, he turns the bullets against the soldiers and ends them. Adonis doesn't even break a sweat as he ends the entire group, only leaving one bald-headed dude. I guess Anicapped didn't just watch what happened as he decides that it would be smart to shoot at Adonis. Other than making a big scene, the bullet does nothing, and Anicapped is shocked to see that Adonis easily stopped it. Adonis uses his written style summoning magic on the already pretty big bullet. It makes it way bigger. Only now does Anicapped realize that it was a bad idea, but it's too late as Adonis demands that he died and he sends the giant bullet back. Shooting Daroka in front of Adonis was bad enough, but shooting in Adonis proved to be worse. As Anicapped now to spare legs, Adonis calls all the humans powerless insects and mocks them for thinking that they had any chance of beating him. Adonis speaks to the poor soul he left alive as he wonders if the humans really thought that he would let them live in peace after killing Chloe. Everyone watches from Earlobe headquarters as Adonis states that he will wipe every last one of the humans off the face of the planet. He vows to make them feel Chloe's despair. Yamato completely powerless at this point and just hopes that Yuki can carry out her mission in time. We then watch as Yuki is in awe of the crown jewel of science that once defeated the witches. Once activated, they will be able to suppress Adonis's magic. We then learn that Yamato is actually her big brother. Luckily for her, those cartoonish earlobes don't seem to run in the family, but she does hope to activating the machine will make her useful to her brother. Yuki rushes for men to get things started, but they are stopped by one of the 4 national bureaus of the Redia Empire, the National Science Agency. Director Theta states that she knew the Habitat Security Bureau would show up and acknowledges how much Yuki has grown. Yuki is shocked to see Theta there, and we see that when Yuki lacks an earlobe she makes up for with giant eyebrows. Theta won't allow them to activate the device and Yuki demands an explanation. Back at headquarters, Yamato lifts his phone all the way around his giant earlobe to receive a call from Yuki, but is shocked to hear that it's actually Theta. Yamato tells her that he has no time to speak as they are in a race against time, but he listens as what she has to say is of vital importance. She explains that the magic photon thingamajig cannot be activated. Science is the work of humanity that sheds light on the world. They have learned a lot, but there are still things that they don't understand. One of those things are the particles emitted by the device. She reminds him of the illness developed by soldiers who participated in the witch hunts 10 years ago called human cellular dysfunction disease. They can't say for certain, but they believe these particles affected the human body and this device kills cells. Yamato has never heard this before, but Theta explains that that's because they hid it. Unfortunately for the stupid humans, there are no more witches left to restore the natural environment. The atmosphere that would have cleansed these harmful rays is gone and nature has fallen out of grace. As things are now, if a human body were exposed to a massive amount of particles it would be destroyed. Yamato is more shocked than ever as he now realizes that it might have been the cause of Emperor Gerda's illness. A quick look back at the fight shows that Adonis is laughing maniacally as he easily stops more bullets from more soldiers, and the same thing happens to them. They are quickly losing the battle and Yamato realizes this. Theta tells Yuki to return to the capital, but she takes off running for the device instead. She thinks about how they can't afford to worry about illnesses when the threat of magic is right before them and remembers how her big brother left his task in her hands. Theta tells everyone to evacuate and begs Yuki not to activate the device as even a little exposure could have major consequences. Yuki isn't listening at all as she states that her mission is of national importance and the desperate girl activates the device. In the city, Adonis continues to laugh like a maniac but is shocked when his magic is stopped. Everyone at headquarters sees that Adonis has dropped his quill and Yamato desperately asks how Yuki is. Theta tells them that it was nothing, but we see that she and Yuki are severely injured. While Theta turns off the device, Yamato desperately wants to know what happened, but Theta reminds him to focus on the task in front of him. She questions if Adonis is really someone that they can't be without suppressing magic and asks him if they should really be having this much trouble against him. He recalls that his duty is to quickly exterminate those who harm the Empire, and she declares with great pride that they are Redia, the indestructible Empire. Yamato was inspired and commands all the units to charge. Adonis takes off in an attempt to get his quill, but it's too late as the soldiers are already prepared to fire. One very angry Karen gets in the line of fire. Fury said Adonis for harming their nation. A building collapses between them and the other soldiers, but this one Karen couldn't care less and pulls out her thermal blade. Adonis wonders if he's finally going to die and is glad that he will be able to reunite with Chloe. The soldier doesn't hold back at all and takes his head off with one strike. The other soldiers can hardly see anything, but the girl eventually emerges from the smoke with Adonis's head. She states that she ended the witch's apprentice. Everyone celebrates and she is hailed as a hero. Everyone at headquarters celebrates as well, and Yamato sighs in relief. Yamato commands his troops but reminds them not to celebrate just yet. They still need to collect his body and confirm the damage done to each area of the city. Yamato is informed that the soldier that ended Adonis is a new recruit of the armored foot soldiers. His assistant wants to look into her further, but Yamato tells them to not bother as it's far more important to see how Director Theta and Vice Director Yuki are doing. The proudly Yamato determines that Theta was right, their nation is strong. However, we see that Theta wasn't strong enough as shredded up body is being taken away, and so is Yuki. We then watched as Emperor Gerda gives another one of his classic and legendary speeches with tubes seemingly coming out of every part of his body to keep him from flatlining mid-sentence. He announces that magic somehow survived and the abominable witches still remained in this world. The boy they took from the witch's hands 10 years ago has been unleashed upon the world, and it's the worst possible outcome. It's the long-term prisoner and witch's apprentice Adonis. Despite being human like them, Adonis is a remnant of the terrible old world enthralled by magic. Gerda showing what it would look like if life support needed life support explains that even after 10 years, they have failed to determine how Adonis was able to use magic as a human. Gerda reveals that he's enraged at himself for allowing Adonis to live, but he assures his people by reminding them that the Redia Empire is the pinnacle of the world. The power of science they've acquired and their iron-willed troops will yield to no evil. Gerda, who looks like a USB charging station at this point, wraps up his speech by telling his people to be proud they were born human in the Redia Empire. This psycho states that the old world is gone, God is dead, and their nation is now God. At some random school we see that some girl was watching the speech on HM Tube. The teacher acknowledges that things haven't been easy as a few of their students have died, and we see that some plans on a desk and remembrance of one of them. The teacher's apprentice asks whether witch's apprentice sided with the witches if he was a human, but the teacher has no clue. Class is over and he probably just wants to get the heck out of there. The red-headed girl is approached by another girl who states that she saw what she did. The redhead instantly knows what she is talking about but defends herself by saying that it was a normal reaction to that situation. The girl decides to leave her alone, but the redhead still hopes that she eats herself off the building. The redhead is named Eri and she goes to the site of the destruction. She is furious at the Empire for not doing their job to protect the people, and we see that she was the girl whose boyfriend was begging for help. She hesitated to help him and ultimately decided to run for her life, leading him to wonder why she would abandon him just before being crushed. She feels terrible for abandoning him, but even worse for being physically attracted to the guy using magic. A guy surprises her and she can instantly tell that he is with the government. She tries to delete the photo she has of Adonis, but the man told her that it's okay and he will keep her secret. He points out that the witch's apprentice is the heinous criminal who caused the disaster, but he wouldn't snitch on her. Eri apologizes and takes her leave. We quickly find out that this guy's name is Osgorgeous and he is a two-faced jerk. He makes a call to give the girl's exact location. He explains that she seems to have been influenced by the terrorist and ordered that she be seized. He wants the National Security Bureau to decide what will happen to her, but he is certain that she will either be executed or imprisoned for treason. He exclaims that inspecting the disaster area is pretty exhausting but is told that the final check is complete. Oz decides to return to base and tells the girl over the phone named Charmy to give him a hug and a kiss when he gets back. Charmy is obviously annoyed and requests that Chief Oz address her transfer request so she can get the heck out of there. She has had enough of working overtime every day and the boss who abuses their power and harasses her. Moving on from that though, she reveals that some unbelievable analysis just came in and asks Oz to return right away. As we see that Adonis is there, she shockingly reveals that the body they captured is a fake, and we see that Adonis wakes up somewhere else. That brings the episode to an end. Thanks for watching. Want next part? Subscribe the channel and turn on notification bell.